Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. I never thought I'd be the guy with a story like this. But here we are, you and me, in this confessional of sorts. I'm Alex, by the way. My life? It was pretty standard. Decent job, beautiful wife Lydia, a home that was too big for two, and dreams bigger than that home. We were that couple, you know? The ones people envied or pretended to be happy for. It all started with a whisper, not from Lydia, but through the grapevine of our little suburbia. Mr. Sterling, our tenant, was working from home a lot. His wife, a lawyer, was the breadwinner, always out, leaving him to his devices. Devices that apparently didn't always include work, or so the whispers said. I laughed it off. Lydia did too, a bit too quickly, now that I think about it. One evening, Lydia was late. Said she was dealing with a plumbing issue at Sterling's. Plumbing. My Lydia, who calls the plumber when the kitchen sink drips. I let it slide, drowned in my trust for her. But then, it happened again. And again. Always Sterling's house, always something broken. And my Lydia, always the hero. Too many coincidences, right? So, I started paying attention. Not stalking, just noticing. I saw patterns, heard lies that didn't look like lies until they did. Like the night she turned her phone volume down while talking to Sterling. Or when she insisted on fixing his stove herself. Since when do you fix stoves, Lydia? I asked. Since today, she said, with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. The doubts turned into a gnawing at my gut, eating away the trust one had. It wasn't just whispers anymore. It was a full-blown conversation in my head, telling me something was off. That's when I decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I teamed up with Mrs. Sterling, of all people. She had her doubts too. Together, we hatched a plan. A vindictive, calculating plan. Not my proudest moment, but there was no turning back. We set them up, made it so Lydia would go to Sterling's for another emergency repair. Mrs. Sterling left for work, or so Lydia and Sterling thought. We waited. Then, as planned, Sterling called Lydia. She rushed over, and Mrs. Sterling, who never actually went to work, went back home. The moment of truth was brutal. Mrs. Sterling caught them, camera in hand. The evidence was irrefutable, a dagger through the remnants of my trust. I watched the video, feeling a cold detachment take over. There was Lydia, my Lydia, in the arms of another man. Betrayal, raw and unfiltered, captured in pixels and bytes. I confronted her. She tried to deny it, then blamed me for spying. Can you believe that? In the end, she realized there was no way out. I told her we were done, that I wanted a divorce. She laughed, thinking she'd take half of everything. Little did she know, the real estate was all in my name. My game, my rules. Looking back, I realized this confession is as much about revealing her sins as it is about exposing my own vindictiveness. I was calculating, yes, maybe even cold. But in the game of betrayal, it's about protecting what's yours, isn't it? Even if it means losing what you once loved. So here we are, at the end of chapter 1 of my story. A tale of doubt, betrayal, and the lengths one might go to preserve their dignity. And maybe, just maybe, a shot at redemption. But that's a story for another chapter. You're back. Good. You've seen the unraveling, now witness the chaos that follows the thread's end. Our paradise? It was a facade, beautiful but as fragile as a house of cards on a windy day. Let me pull you deeper into the shadows that crept in, shadows I helped cast, mind you. After the confrontation, Lydia's presence became a ghostly reminder of our shattered paradise. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and dreams, now felt more like a battleground, every corner a trench for our silent wars. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the lawn we once admired together, Lydia broke the silence. Alex, can we talk? Her voice, once music to my ears, now grated. Talk? I scoffed, my tone dripping with the venom of betrayal. What's left to say, Lydia? She sighed, a sound of surrender. I made a mistake, a terrible one. But can't we try to fix this? Start over. Start over. The words echoed mockingly in my mind. Fix this? You think we can just patch it up, like one of Sterling's plumbing issues? The sarcasm was a blade, sharpened by hurt and betrayal. Lydia flinched but persisted. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I miss us. Us. I laughed, bitter and cold. There's no us anymore, Lydia. You saw to that. The tension between us was a living thing, coiled and ready to strike. We stood there, in the fading light, the chasm of our broken relationship yawning wide between us. I turned to leave, but Lydia's next words stopped me cold. He meant nothing, Alex. It was a mistake. You're the one I want. I whirled around, anger igniting within me. A mistake? Is that what our marriage was to you? Something to be tossed aside when you're bored? No, Alex, please, she pleaded, but the desperation in her voice only fueled my resolve. It's too late, Lydia. You made your choice. My words were a closing door, sealing away any chance of reconciliation. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal battles and silent meals, the only communication through cold stares and lawyers' letters. The house felt like a tomb, each room a monument to a love that died a traitorous death. And then came the day of the divorce hearing. Lydia looked small, almost fragile, a stark contrast to the woman who'd betrayed me. She reached out, a tentative Alex, escaping her lips. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the remnants of the woman I'd loved. But the shadows cast by her betrayal stretched too long, too dark. Goodbye, Lydia, I said, the finality in my voice a heavy curtain falling on the last act of our tragedy. Walking away, I felt the weight of my vindictive choices, the calculating coldness that had taken root in my heart. Yet, there was also relief, a twisted liberation in the knowledge that I had protected what was mine, even at the cost of our shared paradise. So, there you have it. The shadows in our paradise weren't just cast by Lydia's betrayal, they were nurtured by my own vindictive heart. The pursuit of revenge, of protecting what I deemed mine, had left me as much a shadow as her. Redemption? Revenge? The lines had blurred, leaving only the stark reality of our ruined paradise. We've waded through the shadows together, you and I. Now we plunge into the abyss, the heart's betrayal. My heart, to be exact. It's a twisted tale, so bear with me. The dust of the battle settled, the silence of the aftermath suffocating. Lydia was gone, her absence a void I hadn't anticipated. I thought I'd revel in my victory, in the justice of my cause. But the house, once a battlefield, now felt like a mausoleum for my feelings, a tomb for what could have been. One night, under the cold scrutiny of the moon, I found myself outside Mrs. Sterling's door. Why? Perhaps a misguided quest for companionship, a shared misery in our mutual betrayal. Or maybe I sought vindication, proof that I wasn't the only one ensnared by the folly of trust. I knocked. The door swung open, revealing Mrs. Sterling, her eyes a mirror of my own torment. Alex, she greeted, her voice a whisper in the silence. May I come in? My voice was rough, the words alien. She nodded, stepping aside. The interior was a stark contrast to the life I'd left behind. Warm, inviting, a home. We sat, two souls adrift in the aftermath of betrayal, clinging to the wreckage of our past lives. The conversation was tentative at first, skirting around the edges of our pain. But as the night deepened, so did our discourse. I thought I'd feel free, I confessed, the words tasting bitter. But all I feel is this emptiness, a void where Lydia used to be. Mrs. Sterling nodded, her eyes reflecting the glow of the fading embers in the fireplace. I understand. I thought catching them would bring closure. Instead, it left me questioning everything. Our love, our marriage, was it all a lie? Her vulnerability stripped away my veneer of vindictiveness. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe we were just collateral in their selfish games. Silence fell, a comfortable blanket wrapping around us. It was then I realized my heart hadn't just been betrayed by Lydia, it had been betrayed by me. In my quest for revenge, I'd ignored its whispers of longing, of love still lingering amidst the ruins. The night waned, and with it, the walls I'd built. Mrs. Sterling, or rather, Sarah, became more than just a fellow victim. She became a confidant, a friend. Our shared experience of betrayal, instead of pushing us into the darkness, became a beacon, guiding us toward a new understanding. As I left her home that night, the world didn't seem as bleak. The shadows cast by our former partners no longer seemed as oppressive. But the betrayal of the heart? That was a wound still fresh, its depths unknown. In the days that followed, Sarah and I found solace in our shared journey from betrayal to healing. Our meetings, once a product of circumstance, became appointments of necessity. She showed me that the path to redemption wasn't paved with revenge, but with forgiveness, not just of those who had wronged us, but of ourselves. And yet, the heart's betrayal is a complex beast, its shadows long and dark. As I navigated the treacherous path of healing, I couldn't shake the feeling that this newfound connection was yet another betrayal, not of Lydia, but of my own wounded heart, seeking solace in the very pain that had birthed it. So here I am, sharing this tale with you, not as a victor, but as a man still wading through the aftermath of betrayal. The heart's betrayal, it turns out, is not just a matter of love lost, but of the love that remains, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the light of forgiveness to reveal its depth. And in that light, perhaps, a chance for a new beginning. Here we are, you and I, at the precipice of change, the crossroads of decision. If you've ever stood at the edge, knowing that one step could alter the course of your life, you'll understand. It's here, in this liminal space, that the true test of character is faced. Sarah and I, we found ourselves leaning on each other more than we anticipated. Our shared pain became the foundation of something unexpected, a companionship that filled the void left by our respective betrayals. But with every meeting, with every shared secret and laugh, the crossroads loomed closer. One evening, Sarah invited me over. Her home had become a sanctuary of sorts, a place where the ghosts of our past were acknowledged but kept at bay. We sat across from each other, a comfortable silence enveloping us, the kind you find with someone who truly understands your scars. "Alex," Sarah began, her voice breaking the silence like a stone rippling the surface of a still pond. "Do you ever think about the future?" Her question caught me off guard. The future had been a concept I'd avoided, a horizon marred by the wreckage of my marriage. "I do," I admitted, locking eyes with her. "Lately, all I've thought about is how different it looks from what I once imagined." Sarah nodded, a wistful smile touching her lips. "Me too. I used to think the future was something you planned. Now, I realize it's something you build from the ruins." The air between us charged with an unspoken recognition of the crossroads we faced. Was this, whatever this was between us, the path to rebuilding? Or was it a detour, a way to avoid facing the road ahead alone? The conversation shifted, as if by mutual agreement, to safer topics. But the question lingered, a specter at the feast. Days turned into weeks, and the crossroads grew ever more daunting. Sarah and I, we danced around the edges of what we were becoming, afraid to step into the unknown. Until one day, the decision was forced upon us. I was at home when I received a call from Lydia. Hearing her voice was like a jolt to the system, a reminder of the life I'd left behind. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, her tone serious. My heart raced, a cocktail of emotions swirling within me. Anger, curiosity, but most of all, a sense of finality. "About what, Lydia?" I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "It's about us, about our divorce." "There's something you should know," she continued, pausing as if gauging my reaction. I tensed, bracing for what was to come. Lydia's next words were a sharp twist in an already tortuous path. "I'm pregnant, Alex." The world seemed to stop spinning. Pregnant. The word echoed in my mind, a cacophony of disbelief and sudden, acute fear. "How? I mean, are you sure?" I stumbled over the words, my mind racing. "Yes, I'm sure. And before you ask, it's yours." Lydia's voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt. The revelation shook me to my core. The crossroads before me suddenly seemed insurmountable, the paths diverging into wildly different futures. I hung up the phone, the weight of Lydia's news anchoring me in place. Sarah's face flashed before my eyes, a stark reminder of the choice I now faced. To step forward with Sarah was to embrace a future built on understanding and shared healing. But Lydia's news was a tether to the past, a call to responsibility and a test of character I hadn't anticipated. The crossroads of decision demanded a choice. But how does one choose between the future they've begun to imagine and the ties that bind them to the past? As I stood in the silence of my home, the crossroads stretched out before me, a testament to the complexity of the human heart. The decision, I knew, would define me. Not just to Sarah or Lydia, but to myself. In that moment, at the crossroads of decision, I realized that the path ahead wasn't just about choosing whom to be with. It was about deciding the kind of man I wanted to be. And in that realization lay the hardest truth of all, that sometimes there are no right decisions, only necessary ones. You know, the reckoning sounds like something out of an old Western, doesn't it? A showdown at high noon, where truths are laid bare and scores are settled. Well, in a way, that's exactly what it felt like. But in the dim light of reality, it's messier, filled with shades of gray rather than clear blacks and whites. Lydia's revelation about the pregnancy threw everything I thought I knew into chaos. It wasn't just about deciding who I wanted to be with anymore. It was about facing the consequences of my past actions, of our past actions. I needed to see Lydia, to talk face to face. There was a storm inside me, a tempest of anger, confusion, and, if I'm honest, a flicker of hope. A child, our child, was a connection that couldn't be ignored. a tie that bound us together in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. The meeting was set in a neutral place, a small cafe that had seen better days. I arrived first, my thoughts a tangled mess. When Lydia walked in, I saw the strain on her face, the weight of our shared past etched into her features. "Alex," she greeted, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a tumult of emotions. "Lydia." My reply was terse, a reflection of the inner conflict raging within me. We sat, two estranged souls on either side of a worn-out table, the air heavy with unsaid words. "I'm sorry," Lydia began, breaking the silence. "For everything. I know it's not enough, but I need you to know that." Her apology hit me like a physical blow, unexpected and jarring. "Sorry doesn't change what happened, Lydia. But I'm listening." She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "This baby, our baby, I want it to know its father. I want you to be a part of its life, if you're willing." The weight of her request settled over me, a mantle of responsibility I wasn't sure I was ready to bear. Yet, the thought of a child, my child, growing up without me was a sharp pain, a regret in the making. "Why now, Lydia? After everything, why do you want me involved?" My question was genuine, a search for understanding amidst the wreckage of our relationship. "Because I know you, Alex. Despite everything, I know the kind of man you are, the kind of father you'd be. And our child deserves that, deserves you." Her words were a balm and a blade, soothing yet cutting deep. The reckoning wasn't just about facing Lydia. It was about facing myself, the parts of me that I'd tried to ignore, the parts that needed to make things right. "Lydia, I need time to think about this, about what it means for all of us." My voice was thick with emotion, the reality of the situation pressing down on me. "I understand," she replied, her voice soft. "Take all the time you need. Just know that this baby, our baby, it's a chance for something new, something good." As I left the cafe, the weight of the reckoning settled heavily on my shoulders. It wasn't just about choosing a path forward. It was about reconciling with the past, with the choices and mistakes that had led us here. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and difficult decisions. But as I walked away, I realized that the reckoning had brought a clarity I hadn't expected. It wasn't just about making amends or seeking forgiveness. It was about embracing the opportunity to create something new from the ashes of the past. In the end, the reckoning wasn't a showdown or a settling of scores. It was a beginning, a first step toward a future that was still unwritten. And as daunting as that future might be, for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face it, whatever it might bring. Here we are, you and I, at the end of this twisted road. If you've stuck with me this far, I guess you're waiting for some kind of closure, a neat ending tied up with a bow. Life's not like that, though, is it? It's messy, complicated, and sometimes there's no clear right or wrong. Just choices and the aftermath. After Lydia's revelation, my world tilted on its axis. Pregnant. The word haunted me, echoing in the quiet moments, pulsing with accusation in my darker thoughts. What kind of man did that make me? To consider walking away, to entertain thoughts of a life with Sarah while Lydia carried my child? I wrestled with my conscience, with the very essence of who I was and who I wanted to be. Sarah, bless her, saw the storm within me before I even had the words to explain. When I finally told her, her reaction was a mirror to my turmoil. "Alex," she said, her voice calm but her eyes stormy with unspoken emotions, "what are you going to do?" What was I going to do? The question was a knife, each possible answer a different cut, deep and stinging. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of my indecision like chains. "I feel like I'm being torn in two." Sarah reached across the void between us, her hand a lifeline. "Whatever you decide, I'll understand. You have a responsibility, Alex. To Lydia, to your child. But don't forget, you have a responsibility to yourself, too. Responsibility." The word was a beacon, guiding me through the fog of my own making. In the end, I chose to face it, to embrace the impending storm of fatherhood, not out of obligation, but out of a desire to do right by my unborn child. And Sarah, she stepped back, not with bitterness, but with grace, allowing me the space to navigate this new path. Lydia and I were not back together, not in the way we were, but we're finding a way forward for the sake of our child. It's not easy, and some days it feels like we're walking through a minefield blindfolded, but we're walking it together in a truce born out of necessity and a shared future. As for me, I've learned more about myself in these months than I ever wanted to know. I've seen the depths of my own selfishness, the heights of my capacity for love, and the unwavering strength of forgiveness. I've learned that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of the story, that redemption isn't just a concept, but a path that you walk, step by painstaking step. Looking back, would I change anything? It's tempting to say yes, to wish away the pain and the heartache. But every choice, every mistake, has led me to this moment, to a version of myself I can live with. A version that understands the value of a second chance, the strength found in forgiveness, and the unpredictable beauty of life's messiness. So here we are, at the end of our journey together. You've seen me at my worst, shared in the turmoil of my heart, and witnessed the tentative steps toward redemption. The road ahead is uncertain, fraught with challenges and shadowed with past mistakes. But it's my road, my path to walk. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.